it's only a meditation thing, or what are you gonna do with people?
No, in a way, I mean, teaching the most basic meditation is an extremely quick thing. I could send them off to do a Vipassana course, or I don't completely agree with that interpretation of Theravadan Buddhism.
So would you
the
use
technique
your
of meditation.
experience, would you use your knowledge of what you have learned in the past 20, 30 years of your life?
Mm.
I mean, would you transfer this knowledge to the people, or how would you?
Well, like any kind of, there's both. For instance, you can meditate together to start with, and send people out with some homework to do. Show a simple technique to start, and then talk about more complex techniques later on, to give them a kind of a smorgasbord of things, and then they can have a sense of, well, what works for me straight away. Beyond that, there's just the therapeutic thing of just talking, seeing what's on someone's mind and letting that move into an insight. Hopefully, I can shed some light on, give them a new perspective, or let them find a new perspective within themselves. There's looking at balance in life, to do some yoga for the people who aren't in their bodies, for instance. It would always be different depending on the person. Inquiry, though, is a fantastic skill that I was talking about before with the rarity. And Hinduism is the original form of inquiry, like, who am I? To discover what the self is, to discover what consciousness is, that you aren't your thoughts and feelings. And then rarity in many ways is an elaboration of that. You can teach that technique, but I could also just send someone off to the website or look at a whole bunch of rarity videos. I mean, I don't have to be the one to teach everything. I want to be like a steward for people's path. I'm not going to claim credit for anything. It depends on how much they want to learn. Some people would want to learn everything from me. Others want to just hit it, and I'll say, go over there, look at that, read that, and just see how the whole thing unfolds. And then they'll begin to have experiences that they will see are all like different flavours pointing to the same thing. That's the beauty of using a wide variety of paths. Traditionally, it was like, stick to one path. But now we're exposed to so much stuff. We take in so much information. We have so many experiences. We should be taking the cream of different paths. Because, the reality is that many of the traditions, often they've been subject to history. Different traditions have come through more or less unscathed, and sometimes with parts of them maligned. This could be controversial to some, but in my own experience, I find that some of the Eastern traditions are relatively unscathed. If you look at Christianity, there is an absolute truth at the core of Christianity, but it got heavily maligned through history and being related to politics. And, so they say, for instance, reincarnation was removed from the canon, in the early Christian years. And I look at many of the interpretations of the Bible, and honestly, if you understand Tibetan Buddhism, I think you'll understand Jesus very well. Now, that's not to malign Christians. I have an understanding of what Christianity is. I have an understanding of what Jesus, for instance, was doing, what the cross means, for instance. And this could appeal even to Christians who are open-minded and liberal in their mindset, to really shed light even on their own beliefs. It is completely valid to be a Christian, to believe in Jesus, but quite often you'll be told a lot of stuff that won't completely satisfy you. Oh, just believe in Jesus and you'll go to heaven. Well, that's one of the lowest bars of enlightenment. It makes it sound really good. It's really easy. You just live through life, and as long as you believe in Jesus. But I would help people to reconceive of that. The meaning of believing in Jesus is to emulate him, to be as him, and to do whatever it is to become like him. And you see so many instances that the modern world has been, in many ways, corrupted by its alignment with very denuded versions of Christianity. And to help correct those, And to not be so closed-minded to say, oh, you know, Christianity's right and the Buddhists are all going to hell and all such quite silly ideas. I think we should be mature enough to realize that now. You can look at the Bodhisattva ideal and understand that Jesus was going on the cross. He wasn't, I don't believe myself that he was the Son of Man, like God was standing up there on a cloud and he said, I've got a son and I'm going to send him down there. I mean, to me, that is, I hate to say it, but it's true, a childish kind of a folk interpretation of Christianity. We are all the Son of Men. We are all born on the cross of, you will understand this in Buddhism, of being in a body, of coming into this world of separation. And we will all go through what the Buddhism identifies as the sufferings of aging, not getting what we want. Our ego is always bashing up against people, doing our best in spite of the fact that life is hard, and apparently having to work and fight our way for survival until the day we die, you know? That's the cross. The cross is the body. The cross is death. The cross is everything that's apparent about what we think of as the real world. But as I said before, like Buddhist Tantra is showing you that perhaps a perfect world is possible. Like the Christians would talk about heaven, where you would just surrender and God does everything. You'd be like the lilies of the field. You don't have to muscle your... It's actually to stop using your ego to muscle your way through life. I mean, everybody thinks we have been sold on the paradigm that we have to muscle our way through life, and we have to ensure, we have to work, we have to earn income because no one's going to do it for you. I mean, I've been in so many spiritual communities with so many spiritual people, and I could count on one hand people who actually entertain the idea that they are actually really taken care of by God, so to speak, by life. Who really go all the way and are as radical as the Buddhist philosophy was, and are willing to put their life on the line to live in faith, to live in trust, and that their only job is, as Tibetan Buddhist says, to live as if you were going to die tomorrow, to be ready to die, to find absolute fulfillment as if it was your last breath. As in Hinduism, you know, it's like you're ready for the next life. You're not kind of preparing, to pay off your mortgage in 30 years' time. I mean, sure, if that satisfies you, great. And I'm not saying people go and give up your jobs until you understand this, but I would challenge you to, if even a cursory look at all the spiritual paths would tell you that you don't have to do that. You don't have to. The whole path is all about ego versus being, ego versus God. Is it you running life? I mean, life is always showing you that you don't have the power. You can point yourself in the right direction, of course. You take responsibility like a normal, conventional human being to do your best with your life. But you understand the limitations of that. You understand that in the end, you don't know what's going to happen today, and you're not in control of everything. And you surrender. That's where the concept, and Christianity is strong on that. Islam is very strong on that, about surrendering to God, understanding where that you give it over to a higher power. And in the end, the higher power has it. And that's the singularity. So there's only one thing here. That's where the God concept comes from. There's only one thing here, and it's not you. Your little ego is a blip in eternity. And it's a random, almost random collection of karmas, of bits and pieces, of psychological experiences, of ideas, thoughts and feelings. And we're all running around thinking that's us and it's going to last forever. And we got to make the most for it, and it's all about me getting first. It is childish. And we are, even as a race, if you look and take very literally the state of the planet and the state of the species, even from that perspective, which is as high as many people will go, that's never going to be resolved if we're all running around with this self-interest idea. You know, my little ego, my little meat body has to finish on top of the heap. Until more people see that is just, it's so outmoded. We're at such a point in this apparent history where we're being pushed to the point where we're supposed to wake up from that. It's like Eckhart Tolle says, we don't wake up from that even this dream of this particular life, it won't keep going. And that's not bad. Death will come to this body one way or the other. So why freak out about it? But you've got to read the signs. Be able to read what's happening. Read what your life is. That's what spirituality is. And it's even what coaching is too. It's even what psychology is. It's really just about maximum honesty, maximum realism. And to reach maximum realism, you have to be maximally brave. It's like Nisargadatta says, it's courage. He says, what I'm made of is courage. I have the courage to see that I am consciousness and the world is, it's just a thing that comes, it's just like a freckle on your arm. It's not, in Hinduism, it's not that important. Now, I don't mean that for people to become unethical and amoral, because I don't think that's the point. The point is you have to get outside of your little story of you and your little life and all your little problems. And if you don't do that, you will never be happy. No coach is going to make you happy. No psychologist is going to make you happy. No job is going to make you happy. No relationship is going to make you happy. They're all bits and pieces, but they're all surrogates. They're all facsimiles for the real thing, and that's what people knew for thousands of years. That's what religion was pointing towards, because people knew that unless you approach the absolute, unless you approach the divine, you will not hit what life is really for. There is no other game. And now, I don't expect individuals to necessarily be interested in that, but the tragedy of our age is that we have a strong paradigm. We think we're so free, but actually social control and mind control, in many ways, with psychology, has never been stronger. People are inside a very tight matrix of ideas. So we're supposedly very free, but our new religion is science, which we suppress the fact that in many ways it's like imagine you're inside a dream and you go, well, this is true about the dream, so, I don't want to go through the proof that this is dream-like, this reality is we could talk about that within Buddhism, but there's a very clear way of showing that this life is dream-like. It ends at night, for instance, and then you go into another dream. How do you explain that? Our idea of concreteness and of this reality is just an idea. And even science is based on that concreteness, that idea that, we can study the way things really actually are. That's a premise. And it actually, even within the philosophy of science, it's not even valid. A friend of mine, when I was speaking to him about that, he said, I remember reading Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance and being completely convinced at one point, oh my God, the whole premise of Western thought is flawed. And yet, we're all within this setup, and we're expected to find happiness within that. So it's when there are people who are yearning to push through to truth, and the paradigm is so strong, it might work fine for a certain number of people, but it's the people who are it's actually the people who are ready for the path, so to speak. The ones who are who know that they're restricted within what they're living inside of. They often think that they're like pathologized. They're depressed, for instance, or they're searching for something, and people, they sniff at them and look down on them. But as if there's something wrong with them. But no, they're the people who need guidance. They're the people who have to be shown the way through to take the bravery and say, you know what? I'm going to question everything. Everything. And until they have the balls, really, to question everything, then they won't get through. And they need support in that. There is no greater need for support than when someone takes on. It is the greatest endeavour. It always has been the greatest endeavour. It's like William Yeats, the Irish poet, said, I may show as great a courage looking into the abysses of himself as any soldier who's ever walked onto any battlefield. And more. This is what life is in the end. And so That's why gurus existed. Of course, there's been a lot of abuse of the concept of gurus. There are a lot of people who in their humanness, pretend to be things that they're not. But that aside, it doesn't change the fact that imagine if you were to take on the hardest thing in this life. That's when you need help. That's when you need help more than anything else. Not you've got a tennis instructor. You can hit a few balls around, you'll become a reasonable tennis player. But when you're taking on the real thing, that's when you need help. And I'm looking at a society like Australia, and I'm seeing that people don't even know. They can't even conceive of the fact that this would be a good thing, because there's so many ideas about, spirituality is really bad, we're all really into science now, and that's kind of Islam people justifying war on that basis, and they cut off people's heads and stuff. All true, but it's got nothing to do with the fact that it's still what life's about. The fact that people get it wrong doesn't mean that I don't applaud them for trying. There's a saying within Tibetan Buddhism that the Buddha bows to the new moon rather than the full moon. He's actually saying that it's one thing it's a powerful psychological thing to, you might say, worship, or at least to conceive of perfection. Like, people interact with the idea of God because just whatever it's even recognized within the yogic path, what you put your attention upon with your intention is what you turn into. So if you think about crappy politics or video games all day long, then your consciousness is not going to elevate. People knew for thousands of years, if you think about God or you think about the Buddha and you experience your humility and you experience admiration of fine qualities, then you'll discover them. You actually turn into that. It's like believing in Jesus. It's like focusing on purity, focusing on truth, discovering where that exists within you.